Every American can see how and where this money has been spent just by going on www.recovery.gov. Now, just to review, 1/3 of the money in this bill, 1/3 was made up of tax cuts. I talked about this at the State of the Union. Tax cuts for 95% of working Americans. I just want to say to the American people, because we see some polling where about twice as many people think we've raised taxes as lowered taxes. 95% of you got a tax cut. Tax cuts. Tax cuts for 95% of working Americans, tax cuts for small businesses, tax cuts for first-time home buyers, tax cuts for parents trying to care for their kids, tax cuts for 8 million Americans paying for college. So far, we've provided $120 billion in tax relief to families and small businesses. Now, up until this point, I've never met a Republican who didn't like a good tax cut. But you remember when I mentioned this at the State of the Union, Joe, they were all kind of squirming in their seats. They weren't sure whether to clap or not, because most of them had voted against all these tax cuts, which I thought was interesting to watch. The second third of this bill was made up of relief for those who have been most affected by this recession. We've extended or increased unemployment benefits for more than 19 million Americans. We made health insurance 65% cheaper for families who lost their jobs and had to get temporary coverage through COBRA. And we gave relief to states that were struggling to balance their budgets. Relief that has allowed 300,000 teachers and education workers to keep their jobs, as well as tens of thousands of cops and firefighters and first responders and correctional officers. And Joe Biden will tell you that not one of the 50 governors we've spoken to, Democrat or Republican, has failed to show appreciation for this relief. And I also have to tell you that I am concerned because state budgets have not yet recovered. And you're now seeing a whole bunch of state and local governments who were able to put off layoffs last year as the recovery money is running out, having to make some very tough decisions, and we could potentially see layoffs taking place this year because we haven't re-upped in terms of providing some help to those states and local governments. That's something that we're watching and we're concerned about. Now, the last third of the Recovery Act is what I want to talk a little bit about more today. It's the reason Blake and Doug are here. And that third is about rebuilding our economy on a new and stronger foundation for growth over the long term. See, we knew when we came into office that it wasn't enough simply to solve the immediate crisis before us. We knew that even before the crisis hit, we had come through what some people are calling the lost decade, a period where there was barely any job growth and where the income of the average American household declined. This is before the recession. Over the course of the decade, the average American household, they saw their incomes decline even as the costs of health care and college tuition were skyrocketing, had reached record highs. The prosperity was built on little more than a housing bubble and on financial speculation. People maxing out on their credit cards, taking out home equity loans. We can't go back to that kind of economy. That's not where the jobs are. The jobs of the 21st century are in areas like clean energy and technology, advanced manufacturing, new infrastructure. That kind of economy requires us to consume less and produce more, to import less and export more. Instead of sending jobs overseas, we need to send more products overseas that are made by American workers and American businesses. And we need to train our workers for those jobs with new skills and a world-class education. Other countries already realize this. They're putting more emphasis on math and science. They're building high-speed railroads and expanding broadband. They're making serious investments in clean energy because they want those jobs. And America cannot stand still in the face of this challenge. We can't afford to put our future on hold. So that's why a big part of the Recovery Act has been about investing in that future. Yes, it created jobs now. Yes, it created business opportunities now. But more importantly, it's laying the foundation for where we need to go. So instead of just pouring more money into America's schools, regardless of their performance, we launched a national competition between states that only rewards success and reform. Reform that raises student achievement and inspires students to excel in math and science and turns around failing schools that steal the future of too many young Americans. We're also making sure that our nation has an infrastructure that's built to compete in the 21st century. So we now have projects in 31 states that are laying the ground for the first high-speed rail network in the United States of America. For years, Japan, Europe have had high-speed rail. China's got about 40 times as many projects that have been going on this front. We're playing catch-up. We shouldn't be.